As a child, we all long for a hero. As a society as a whole, we search for that leader that can be our hero. But as we mature and as we grow, it dawned on us that the hero is inside every one of us. And in the world's social media, we all start at zero. And slowly we search deep within ourselves to find who we are. And we have that moment of truth where we embrace that the hero that we've been searching for has been there all along. It is living deep inside of every one of us. And we start embracing that journey and we become that hero that we search for.
Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to episode 51 of Zero to Hero. Our next guest today is an awesome guy. At first glance, you would think personal trainer. That's really what calls to you. But the more that you dig into Jay, the more that you realize his program is much, much more than just focusing on working out and nutrition. So his name is Jay Ashman. He's with Seventh Level Fitness. Let's go ahead and bring him in. Jay, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. So before we get into it, talk a little bit about, your philosophy with your coaching, with the mental side of it, and then also obviously, the physical, the nutrition side.
All right. First of all, I mean, the mental side is pretty much everything. I mean, mindset is completely everything. This is the X's and O's of our business are relatively easy. You can find a good program online almost anywhere. Only the problem is finding a good program. So those who don't know how this stuff works, they can just look up on bodybuilding.com and find any program they want to follow. Now, that may not be the best program for them, which is why coaches like us exist, number one. Number two, but the mindset part of it all is everything. So if you're a certain demographic, like you're middle class and up, there's a pretty good chance you know how to eat. You know what's healthy, you know what's not healthy. I mean, eating is obviously, I think, the easiest part. However, it's also the hardest part because now we're dealing with, what we know healthy food to be. And it's like, well, how can we get that person to buy into eating better? So it's like trying to find their intrinsic motivation, dealing with, roadblocks along the way, like travel, vacations, family, kids, career, all that stuff. And then the working out part is like trying to get a program that fits their goals. So for someone that is a 50-year-old soccer mom with 3 kids working 40, 50 hours a week in a corporate job, I wouldn't give her something that I would do. That's kind of stupid, actually. So I had to fit in how many days a week should she go to the gym, what she have access to, how to get her into the right program, and then also how to keep her going along with that program as well. Because like I said, the X's and O's, like I said before, are pretty simple. Writing a good program is not hard. Getting someone's macros or a decent diet planning set is not difficult. It's everything along the way, which makes it huge, like drawing boundaries, like allowing yourself to be selfish for your own goals, stuff like that. I mean, because it comes down to the world. It's like you can rely upon essentially one person, that's yourself. And as much as we would like things to be different, it's not the case. As we saw by the pandemic breaking out, everybody got in this incredibly selfish mind. Not everybody, but people turn incredibly selfish. So that's pretty much true for humanity in general. It's like when the chips are down, you got to rely upon yourself. So how can we teach that person? How can I teach a person how to depend upon themselves without neglecting their other duties in life, like family and career?
Yeah, that's so good, man. And I think it is the mental block when it comes to working out, right? I mean, and not only in getting out to do it, once you're in it too, right? I mean, your body's screaming at you, right? It's telling you to stop, and it's really that push through that wall, right? So not only to get up and go out and actually get started, but once you're doing it, to keep going, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, plus when people start joining a gym, a lot of times, especially women, will be intimidated by gym, thinking people are looking at me or gonna make fun of me. And then we have a plethora of videos online where people just like gym fail videos mocking people. So that's a real fear for some people, thinking well, if I do something stupid, some asshole is going to film me and put me on TikTok and make fun of me. that's the unfortunate reality of this world. But everybody wants to go viral for something stupid, it seems like. So people, chances are it's not going to happen to you, but that fear is in the back of their head. Or it's like, well, I'm not in shape. I don't want to go to a gym full of in shape people. I'm going to feel out of place and feel like they're laughing at me. Chances are they don't give a shit because you're there to help yourself. But in the same token, how do you get that person to realize, okay, this is a rational, but yet irrational fear. Like it's rational to feel this way, but how can we overcome this? And that's where a lot of mindset work comes into play, where essentially everything we do is really based around psychology. And that's why I try to make my coaching as important as possible, which is why I'm going to school for my psychology degree for my master's, so I can actually be a little better of a coach. So nevertheless, everything we do is getting, the buy-in value. Like what is your what? What is your why? And then reinforce that the entire way by building good habits.
That's so good. Yeah, the why is so important. And I love what you said there about the fear of kind of being exposed, right? So,
Right.
they got this imposter syndrome, of I'm not somebody that works out, right? Going into the gym for the first time. And social media can be harmful in that way, but there's also some positive people out there that are kind of trying to get rid of those trends. I don't know if you've seen, I think his name's Joey Swole. I'm not sure if that's actually, what he goes by or if that's actually what it is. But it's those videos that you're talking about, where it's the TikToks of look at this guy, right? And they're doing something that looks maybe a little bit funny, right? And he goes
Yeah.
in, he's like, no, you're the jerk, right? Or there's somewhere, the guy's staring at the girl from across the gym. He comes over to assist, and he's like, no, he's just trying to legitimately help you, So there are those positive things out there on social
Right.
media where guys that are in shape, right? I mean, he's got a great physique, are telling you, hey, stop acting like this, right? Just be better as people. So
Right.
I love that you brought that up, man.
But the
Um,
flip side, the flip side of Joey Swole is I was just talking about this the other day on Twitter, is that there's a flip side to everything. Okay, Joey is
sure.
bringing attention to people doing stupid stuff in gyms. However, you look at all of his comments, and they're a bunch of misogynistic, sexist jerks who are basically
Mm,
trashing women for assuming that some guy is looking at her. Now, the woman shouldn't post a video and shame somebody for just being there. That's one flip side. Joey, I understand what he's doing with that by bringing attention to saying, hey, act like a normal person. Nobody owes you anything. But then, in my opinion, now, please mine, this is armchair quarterbacking, he should say, hey, I don't want to tolerate and hear these sexist, misogynistic comments because people will sit there and say, and they'll start going off on tangent about women in gyms. This is why men don't go to gyms. Women should have their own spaces in gyms, stuff like that. And
mm,
it's like, if he really wants to help, sit there and say, hey, you know what? Sexism, misogyny is not tolerated on my page, and then start banning people. So what is he really helping all that much,
mm.
or is he adding more fuel to the fire? So that's a question I often have myself, because the internet world, it's an interesting facade. I mean, it's real, but it's also not real. You can put out any kind of information you want. You can pretend to be any person you want to be, and if you do it convincingly enough, people are going to buy into it. I've seen it happen dozens of times. So people have to, like, the whole adage, let the buyer beware kind of runs into play. So when people see videos like that, understand that that's like a microcosm of what the world actually is. Everybody who's the loudest person in the room is going to be online blasting that loud. That's just the way it is. The outrage echo chamber. So you add that to it. So when you see those comments, you see people saying, oh, stuff about women, separate spaces, segregation again. And it's kind of ridiculous. But there are people out there that do exist. And they feel safe saying it online because they're hidden behind an anonymous username. So Joey, on one hand, is doing a decent job exposing things. On the other hand, with that power comes great responsibility. The quote Spider-Man. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, on one hand, you're saying act like a human being. The other hand, you're allowing people in your comments to not act like human beings. Now, he can't control what they're saying, but it's his page. He can control, okay, I don't want
Right.
people to see this. I'm deleting and I'm blocking this. So it's kind of a give or take for me. I'm like kind of conflicting on that stuff sometimes. I think it's,
That's great. I'm glad you
but
brought. I actually hadn't seen the comments, so I'm glad that you brought that up. And I think you're 100% right. I mean, we do have a responsibility online, especially as influencers, right? Somebody that's going to be out in
Yeah.
front of a bunch of people, to not allow that stuff to happen, and I think
Yeah.
you 100% nailed it. If you're truly caring, right, get in there and either respond to those people or get rid of those things. That's a great
Yeah.
point, Jay.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
obviously the internet world has taken over the real world in a lot of ways because, I mean, you can pretty much go viral easily if you really tried, I guess you could say. So it's become this facade of humanity where it's like filters and manufactured images. And I mean, I'm 48 years old, so I'm not that person to be like, hey, these kids today. I mean, every generation has their quirks. Mine did, millennials do, Generation Z. And it just seems like we're rapidly turning into how viral can I go generation, where it's like, what can I do to get the most attention, to get the most likes? And it's a little bit disconcerting in a way because it takes away the actual act of humanity, like working with people, talking to them one on one, like helping them out. Because anybody can put a video out that's slickly edited. That doesn't make him a great coach. They may look like a great coach in the video because, like, oh man, his exercise looks awesome. But it's like if you look at the nitty gritty of everything, like I not go off on a tangent, the basics really work well. You look at Ben Bruno out in Los Angeles. He's an old friend of mine from the Boston area, and now he's training like celebrities like Chelsea Handler and Kate Upton and Timberlake and all those guys. He has a he's on Today Show on a regular basis talking about training. You look at his Instagram stuff; it's all basic stuff like split squats, deadlifts, landmine work. Look at his gym in his garage in Los Angeles. There's no machines. It's all barbells, dumbbells, and kettlebells and benches. So, and he has an immense popularity and immense following. But you have someone like that, and you have the flip side, like influencers are just doing these crazy exercises, and I see it pop up all the time, and I laugh, and I'm like, you got a guy with a phenomenal physique doing something ridiculous that is not going to help the average person because it's an absolute mind fuck of an exercise that doesn't make any sense for the average person. But people want to believe something special is going to work for them to get them to the next level. And that's what we battle constantly in the fitness business is like, common sense information that how to disseminate that to help somebody properly against the sexy stuff that looks great on film because it's new and exciting, but doesn't really do much for the average person.
Yeah. Yeah, you nailed that. I think. Yeah, and there's a million of those things out there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there are a dime a dozen as far as like the fitness influencers and all these different new techniques or whatever. But I mean, when it comes down to it, it is pretty basic, right? I mean, it's
Oh yeah.
same workouts, right? Nutrition, all that stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
read through it. And the thing I appreciate about everything I've seen about you, Jay, is there's no fluff to it, right? It's all very straightforward. It's all very obviously Jay, right? And
Yeah.
it's simply broke down. So I appreciate that, man. So Jay, let's go ahead and get into the beef of the show here, man. So not seventh level, not necessarily working out. I know that's a big part of who you are, but who is Jay Ashman? Give us your elevator pitch.
Wow, that's a tough one. I've actually thought about that. Who was Jay Ashman? Jay Ashman is a very complex man. I will say that. Uh, well, that's the first thing I could say. After that, I'm going to think about that a little more. I have many. I guess you could say Jay Ashman is kind of a modern Renaissance man, essentially. Now that sounds a little bit braggadocio and boastful, but hear me out. That's the elevator pitch. I have a variety of interests. I'm well educated. I'm incredibly smart. I know that sounds cocky, but I really am. Uh, I'm also incredibly defiant, so that could be my detriment. I'm very principled. I value my mental health greatly because I've dealt with some pretty sad mental health issues. And essentially, I have like a very cynical but loving view of the world. So I think the world is kind of chaotic and it's kind of a mess. And I don't pretend that I have hope that's going to change. I don't know if it will. That's not really something I can change myself. I'm not a generation to do that. But nevertheless, and I try to instill change and positivity in the people around me the best I can. So my clients get treated like, like people. My friends are valued. My loved ones are loved. And I believe that I can do the best I can with the circle that I have while not trying to change the world per se. because it's a monumental task. And the same thing, like when I say Renaissance man, I got a lot of likes and interests. I mean, I ride motorcycle, do jujitsu, I weightlift, I write voraciously. I read quite often. My books range from like nonfiction to religion, all kinds of crazy stuff, horror. So I like to think that I'm pretty well rounded in a lot of areas of life. And that makes me kind of a fun person to be with, because my conversation can go off any different direction. That's also a benefit of being ADHD, is that even though my focus can be a little crappy sometimes, when I do focus, whew, it's a laser-like focus. Like I'll watch a movie like Interstellar, and the first time I watched it, I went in a rabbit hole for black holes for like 3 hours, just reading about black holes and event horizons and stuff like that. And of course, doesn't make me a physicist by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like I have an idea of what the concept of that is, even though I will never grasp the mathematics of it and the physics of it. I mean, that's out of the realm of my comprehension. But I like to think that I can look at a variety of topics and have an educated discussion on them. And if I don't know, I'll say I don't know. I'm not going to try to pretend to be smarter than I am. So, a couple sentences. Jay is a Renaissance man with a screwed up past.
I love it, man. Yeah, I mean, multifaceted is the word I think I would probably use from the sounds of it. I mean, that's you obviously have quite a bit of experience, and you are obviously very clearly smart. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that about yourself when it's obviously true. And I think you're a person that has a type of appearance where I think people might misjudge you a little bit before knowing you. Have you experienced that quite a bit in your life?
Yeah, I've done that a lot, and some that's very intentional on my part, because look, I grew up in an urban area. I used to be kind of a hooligan, so to speak. No, actually, I was a hooligan. Ran around with some pretty bad people. Did some messed up things, and I'm forever changed by that. The trauma of all that stuff changes you forever, and I go to therapy. You have a psychiatrist, all that stuff too. So I take care of all that. I take care of what I need to take care of. But it's like I look like a thug. I know that. I got tattoos. I'm kind of big. I got tattoos on my faces. My face. I have neck tattoos, hands, arms, sleeves, all kinds of stuff. And I realized that how I look will throw some people off. And luckily, the world is getting a little more tolerant towards tattoos in general, so it's not quite as bad as it could be. But it's like, at first, if you're like an average 20-something woman from like the rural area, from the suburbs, you might look at me at first and be like, this guy's going to try to like rob me or like beat me up or something. But it's not the case, obviously. So having to get through someone's initial like reservations about me, it's kind of fun sometimes, because it's like, yeah, don't judge a book by its cover. I think we all realize that. Like, you look at, if I would judge you by your cover, you get a big beard and slick back hair, look like you belong in a rockabilly band. Like you probably play stand up bass. You wear cuff jeans with freaking Doc Martens. Calling your wife baby doll for fun, stuff like that. But it's not the reality. But it's not the reality of it. The reality is you're probably not a rockabilly guy. Right. I think that people inherently judge a book by its cover. It's just the way humans are. So yeah, it can be off-putting. But I think if you get to know me, I'm not gonna call myself a good guy. That's not for me to judge. I don't really call myself. I think if someone else say, "Hey, he might be a pretty cool guy to hang out with." Well, people like, that's fine. All my clients in person are all women, which is funny, and they're professional women. Like I have a CEO of a American company down here she writes ad copy for nonprofits. The lady who owns Luxury Brow downtown is a client of mine. I have a woman whose husband's a pediatrician and she's in medical school. She's a client of mine. Another woman client, another female client. She's like analytics manager for like Neiman and Marcus. So all these people are like professionals, and they hire me despite how I look. So clearly, I'm resonating with people who actually, are paying me. So it works.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once you kind of get past that layer, right? I mean, I found out about you from Aaron Zimmerman, right? So I immediately was like, Aaron, how do you know Jay? Like, tell me about this, because it doesn't look like from sight a relationship that would form. And she's like, no, 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 no. He's the nicest guy ever. He's super sweet. I know he doesn't look the part, but trust me. And I was like, I don't care one way or another. I was intrigued to talk to you either way, but from my perception, right, which is always everybody's reality is their own perception, I was like, how did this relationship form? So I was curious. Um, and you're very open with it, right? You put it out there. So tell me a little bit about the social media journey, what it's been like, having that appearance and then having the clientele that you've got and how those kind of relate.
Well, basically, I try to be as transparent as I can about myself on social media to a degree. Like, for as much as I put out about my mental health struggles and about my life, I'm still fiercely private about a lot of things. A lot of details only my therapist and partner knows,
Sure.
and even my partner doesn't know them all, because I don't really want to put some details of my life in someone else's lap to have them, it's just some are a little screwed up. I don't want to always talk about them to people that I care about. That's why I have a therapist. So, but I existed in a pretty extreme world of sport. Rugby and professional level. I did powerlifting, some men's physique, Highland Games, stuff like that. So I pushed my body to the absolute max, and I've earned a certain physique that people can look at and be like, "Oh, I want to look like you." And I'm like, "Well, first of all, I have pretty good genetics. Number two, I hated myself." So
Mm.
I punished myself in the gym. It was a form of like self abuse. And I pushed myself to the brink of hell in the gym. I mean, it's not sensible to do that. But I also got paid off. There's a ton of strength and a ton of size back then. So a lot of my journey is like basically talking about like, hey, there's people that exist in this extreme world of like lifting and bodybuilding and fitness. Anybody who does something to that degree, there's a pretty good chance of something not quite right in their head. If you
Mm.
play some kind of an extreme sport that requires a lot of body abuse, there's a screw loose. Now I say that very affectionately because it could be body dysmorphia, body image, insecurity. It could be trauma, like deep-seated trauma. You know, a wide variety of things that you're just basically using and just expressing your emotional discomfort through your activity, which is, judging by what I've done in my life for the people I've talked to and coach, I'm pretty dead on with that. And I think people that are my peers would actually admit that too. I've had this discussion numerous times with people are my peers. So what I try to do is like people like, hey, I'm here with you. I've been through it too, and it's like I can help you get through it. And a lot of times it's a multifaceted approach for them. It's like, therapy as well. Like it took me up until last year. I mean, literally, it was like maybe like 6 months ago to really kind of get tired of body image issues.
Mm.
I was doing men's physique, and I did pretty good at my show. And then I started getting ready for a second show, and then my depression went off the charts.
Mm.
And I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to do that stuff anymore. And then so it was like, in order for me to fully, and this is also an extreme example, in order for me to fully beat the body image issues, I had to get back into a sport, which is why I chose jujitsu. Because that way it's about how I perform more rather than how I look. Because if you get involved in like an aesthetic sport or even powerlifting, people are online posting pictures of themselves looking like, freaks. And you may think that you're immune to that, but most people aren't. That stuff just builds and builds in your head. When you got these freaks of nature looking like bodybuilders lifting ungodly amounts of weight, you're like, well, why can't I be that way? Even though I was that way at one point. You don't, when you get older, your brain doesn't want to turn off the fact that you can turn back time. And it's not always possible. So it kind of sticks in your head. In order for me to fully beat that, I had to embrace the fact that, okay, I'm going to be an athlete again, and then eat a certain way, train a certain way, and not worry about how I look anymore. I'm not going to be sloppy, but at the same token, I've built enough muscle mass over the years. So like, Why do I worry about this anymore? Why do I care? It's like I already look fine. What am I trying to do? It's like I'm 48 years old. Am I going to keep building muscle like that? No, I have to eat more food or take more drugs, both of which I don't want to do. So I had to temper. This has worked for me. I temper my own expectation with the athlete world, and it's worked so far. I mean, it's not perfect, but then I'm also involved in a sport, with people I enjoy. It's challenging. It's hard. It's physical. It's intimate because you're in contact with people. And I could ease like there's days I don't want to go to class, and there's some days I don't because my head gets so wrapped up in like the anxiety and depression that I don't want to be around people. But then when I leave, I feel amazing. It's just like it's been very helpful for me to get away from the aesthetic side of the world again and more into like, all right, I want to feel better, move better, and perform better. And that shift has changed body image for me. And I see a lot of people involved with powerlifting bodybuilding who are doing the same thing. Because after a certain point in time, you really get tired of feeling like a prisoner in your own body.
That's so good. Yeah, and obviously you're talking about that stuff, publicly, right? Which definitely helps with people relate to that,
Yeah.
although it's not maybe not necessarily that bodybuilding perception, right? Everybody's got their body issues and their
Oh
perception
yeah.
issues and things that they don't like, right? So when they see that, I'm sure it's an immediate connection to you and the fact of, hey, I've gone through this before. I've been in your shoes a little bit different, a little bit maybe more at an extreme level, but you know what they're talking about and you can relate to them. So
Yep.
that's awesome. And it's so funny what you said. I remember when I graduated high school, a lot of people like jumped into this fitness world, right? There was like the fitness pros, there was like the fitness models, right, the bodybuilders, and then it was like they all started to fizzle off, and I noticed it and I didn't know why, but that makes perfect sense, when you're in it for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and obviously even longer for you. That stuff can definitely wear on the mental for
Mm.
sure. And we see it
I've been
outside of
involved
the
in this.
fitness community too, with like the
Yeah.
modeling, right? Like models have it tough, right? They're
Mhm.
constantly being fed that negativity, and it's as we know, we have to put 10 times more positivity in to counteract that negative stuff, right? So when it's
Yep.
constantly being thrown at you, it's almost like a insurmountable peak, right? Like you can't get back
Yeah.
up to that level.
Yeah. Men have their own image. Men have body image issues too. But I, believe, and I'll say this without a doubt, women have had the worst end of the stick with this by far. Like you said, the modeling world, the fitness world, the perfect body world. And it's like, I'm really glad to see major companies now embracing more bodies, more body types. And unfortunately, it took Victoria's Secret shit in the bed with this to have it happen. And Rihanna's brand, Fenty X Savage, came along at the right moment. Like she just, once Victoria's Secret started getting flack for the bodies, it was like she just filled that gap. And you look
Yeah.
at her ads, and men and women of all shapes and sizes. And that's the reality of life. It's like you're not all going to look like The Rock. You're not all going to look like Paulina Porostova. You know, you're not all going to look like there's some Greek god. And it's like you're gonna be regular people. And it's like people want to be represented when they see ads. Representation matters. Like a bigger woman who's maybe like a size 12 wants to look at an ad and see someone that, hey, this is like my body type. That lingerie looks pretty good on her. Maybe I'll try this out. Or
Yeah.
like there's even fitness companies now. I think it's constantly varied gear. I saw an ad the other day on Facebook where it was a bigger woman wearing a new purple workout outfit, a pair of yoga pants and a halter top, and she was doing a yoga pose, and she was a big girl. And I was like, and I always like say, don't read the comments. I read the comments, and I was like, oh God, I hope nobody is acting like a dick. But every comment was like, oh, all positive, and I'm like, all right, that's good
That's awesome.
because
Yeah.
once in a while you're gonna see some jerk bag be like, oh yeah, well look at her, she's heavy, yeah, who cares? But it's like that's the reality of life. Like just because you're a bigger person doesn't mean you can't work out. Doesn't mean that clothes can't be made for you. I can't
Right.
comprehend people pushing back on this. So it's like it's good to see the things change. But again, it's like the whole systemic thing of like we worship beauty. We worship perfect bodies, and that's really never going to change. Sex sells, and that's something that humans are going to be doing forever. It's like we're going to buy sexy, but what's the definition of sexy? That's the thing.
Right.
It's very relative. So I'm glad to see these companies changing that tune a little bit and including more people, which also gives people the idea of like, hey, I'm a bigger girl, I'm a bigger guy, I can go to the gym and not feel like I'm out of place. Those little
Right.
things matter. Little things matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, as we saw with the birth of Planet Fitness, right? I mean, that's what their whole model is, come to
Yeah,
a safe space to work out, right? And I think
yeah,
they kind of swing a little bit too far sometimes with like the hunk alarms and everything like that.
yeah,
But I get that they're trying to, protect their space and make it to where people that aren't comfortable in a Gold's Gym or a City Gym or something
yeah,
like that is able to go in there and have a spot to work out. And I think you're right. I think it is changing as a whole, overall, and I think the perception of what is sexy or what looks good is also changing. Good
yeah.
points, man. Now, Jay, every superhero has a defining moment. What do you think yours is when it comes to life and career?
Whew. Well, the career defining moment was a little tough to point. That's my career kind of expanded in this business for a long time. From 1998, I started. Been a while,
That's awesome.
so I went off and on over the years. I think honestly, the career defining moment I can think of immediately was selling my gym to my partner and getting out of the gym business.
Mm,
That was something like owning the gym was good for a while and it was really helpful, but it completely took over my entire life to the point where I had no life, and I was starting to hate what I was doing, like just having resentment for the business and just tons of anger, and it wasn't healthy. My mental health got worse. I went through a divorce. Uh, I mean, it was a chaotic couple of years. Pandemic, and then after that was just like my entire life changed, honestly. And never would have thought I'd be in a position I am right now, 3 years ago, but I'm here. So that getting rid of the gym was a final straw of a change. And then it was like, what I do in my career now. It's like, yeah, don't want to be training people, but being involved in fitness to that degree of gym ownership, it was tough. I didn't want to take on too many one-on-one clients because I was so emotionally burnt out from everything that I couldn't give myself to my clients the way that I should have. So I did my online work, but I didn't do much in person because it was just too much. But so I started falling back in love with one-on-one training again. And I started picking up clients, steadily and capping myself how many people I see per week in the gym. So I can make sure I'm not blowing myself out too much in my own mental health. That I'm not overstretching myself. So the career thing for me, that defined moment was selling the gym and realizing what do I want out of this business anymore?
mm.
Like I've been in it so damn long. Like how do I keep moving forward without the air of resentment that I had when I owned the gym? So that was the answer for me. Help me find the answer. And life, that truth. So that's an interesting one. Well, the defining moment of my life, I was obviously leaving the gang life in the early 2000s, and walking away from a pretty screwed up world because it could have went either way at that point. And walking away from that, obviously, I didn't really fully address the trauma of that until like 15 years later.
Mm.
Easily. But nevertheless, that's what I'm working through right now is like all the PTSD from all that stuff. And if I didn't walk away, I don't know if I'd be alive today. Put it that way.
Sure.
I don't. I mean, that's just a fact. Or I'd probably be in jail, and that's a hard fact. I mean, because you're involved with some stuff that's not good, obviously. So that was a life environment with me where I was either like, I'm gonna either walk away from this and rebuild my life, or I'm gonna just stay in this stuff and end up a statistic somewhere.
Mm.
So I chose to walk away, and then I didn't really fully find out who I was until like the early 2020s. Honestly, I
Mm.
mean, all those years of stunted growth because of all the trauma, and then when you're trying to work through it all, you start finding out more and more about yourself. And I say it's a big chunk of my life that I was missing as far as like proper development, mental and spiritual development, so to speak. I'm not a spiritual guy. You know what I mean? My spirituality is like it's very personal. So it's
Sure.
like I don't believe in anything, but it's like how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your life around you, and how you feel about the world around you. So I'm trying to I'm getting better with all that, which is good. But it started so late in my life because of the trauma or not doing that correctly or not having tools to deal with it correctly. That when it was finally addressed and told to me look, this is what you are dealing with. Then I started getting the tools to help go through it, and I'm grateful for that. But I could go back and say, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done this, and I could still say that. But at the same token, it's like, well, it happened. It made me who I am today. I don't know if I would be the person I am right now without it. For as much as that stuff was terrible, and as much as it affected me and hurt me, it's as much as I realized, well, I have a lot of empathy. I'm pretty empathetic now. I know that. I feel for people that are struggling. I feel for people who are maybe don't have all the advantages in life that I could have had. I got lucky in a lot of ways. Some people don't. So it's like I can look at that and be like, hey, I want to be a better person for myself and also for people around me. And I can feel for people who don't have it the same way I do.
Mm. That's so good. And I think the most powerful thing there is both of those were a choice, right? A lot of the defining
Yeah.
moments that I hear when I ask that question is, something happened to them, right? Or something along those lines of something happened in their life that they didn't really have any control over sometimes that put them on this path, right? And the thing that I love that you said there is you kind of took a step back on both of them, right? And reevaluated, what do I want? Where do I want to go? And then took that direction, right?
Yeah.
Which is difficult.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have a hard time, kind of taking that step back. You're so into these things, a lot of the times, being in the gym. I'm sure you were there 24/7, or obviously the gang life, right? We call it a gang life because it consumes everything, right? You're so
Yeah.
into it. So, that's so good that you were able to do that and have that mental toughness really to step back and say, hey, what am I doing? Right. I love that,
Yeah.
man. That's so good. Now, Jay,
Yeah. And I
every
mean, the
superhero.
gym's
Go ahead.
okay. Yeah. That's it.
Go
My
ahead.
old gym looks like it's doing decent. Yeah. My old gym looks like it's doing pretty decent. I mean, I don't keep track or anything like that. Obviously, I'm out of it by now. But it's like, yeah, they're still up and running, doing a thing. And it's like, hey, they're in good hands. So I'm sure it'll be fine from here. But it's like for me, yeah, I had to kind of had to move on. And I'm glad I did. And it was definitely a little bit shocking at first. I'm like, oh shit, now I have to, have so much more time in my hands. What am I gonna do with this time?
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, okay. I find a way to fill it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And obviously you're doing still what you love, right? And you're able to evaluate that. So that's
Oh
so
yeah.
good.
Hmm.
Now, every superhero has attributes, right? What do you think are the attributes that really define what a hero is?
Empathy, resiliency, integrity, honor, caring, uh, truthfulness. I mean, all the stereotypical ones. Not really. I mean, notice I didn't say anything about strength and power. I think they're very relative, and I really believe that. But I think, I think we kind of I mean, a hero could be something small. I mean, it could be something large. I mean, people. I mean, you could be a superhero in your house for just taking care of taking care of your kids the right way. You could help out your partner and be a superhero that way. But I think if you really want to define what an actual hero is, just a person who acts with their own principles in mind. I think that principles matter. It's like, what do you stand for? It's like, what are your values? Are you willing to stand by them when it chips at the fan? Are you going to sacrifice those principles and values to get ahead in life? Or are you going to do it in a way that honors what you stand for? And I think that's the core definition of a hero, in my opinion. People look at all those individual words I said, it can all come down to principles and values. And it's like you can see a difference between somebody who doesn't have any and somebody who does. There's somebody who doesn't have any principles of value, they still might succeed in life. They still, nice guys don't always win. That's the fact. On the same token, is that person going to have a truly heroic type of life? Can they look in the mirror and say, all right, well, I did this life based upon what I stand for? And it's like, if they only stand for like money and power and fame, that could be taken away in a second. And you can lose that in one day. But if you get people around you who look up to you and who love you and truly care for you, and you treat them correctly, when the shit hits the fan in your life, they're probably going to be there to help you pick yourself up. So you can be the hero of your life and have with people around you, or you can just sell yourself out completely. And then when, people will be glad to see your demise. It's like you look at,
So good.
society now, it's like, there's people out there that we can probably, won't name any name. You can look at in the media and be like, man, when that person crashes, it's going to be a joy to watch because they're just a screwed up person. But that's because they live their life in a different way than what we deem as heroic. They may think they're heroic, and they very well like define themselves as that. But the reality is, by the standards of like a normal society, they're probably not.
Absolutely.
Maybe they're
Yeah.
heroic in an Ayn Rand novel, but not in real world.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, it keeps going back to that perception, right? How people see themselves, right? But yeah, I mean, 100%. Boiling it down to the character of somebody, right? Being that empathetic, caring person, I think you nailed that 100%. Now, this last one here is really just a fun one for you, Jay. If you had to pick any superhero that relates best to you, who would that be and why?
Venom.
Venom. Okay, why?
Well, because he's kind of an anti-hero. He's not really a superhero. He's not really a good guy. He's not really a bad guy. Like I believe that I believe that most of us have elements of good and bad. Like I'm in touch with my dark side. I embrace it. It's part of who I am. I wrote it about me. I also know that I'm a very caring person. I have a capability of deep love and deep affection. It comes very guarded because I don't trust people that easily. But when I do, I trust them. And I do my best I can. But I look at Venom as like, okay, he was Spider-Man nemesis. There was also times in the comics, and even in the latest movie with Tom Hardy, he's kind of a good guy with an edge. That's what I think defines me as, and I know I'm rough around the edges. Like I can go out and, I'll hang. When I go out someplace, I don't really dress to impress. I'll go to a fine dining restaurant, wear jeans and a t-shirt and a baseball hat. I'll go to a charity event and I'm doing the same damn thing. I'll swear too much. I swear a lot. Try not to here because this is your podcast.
No, feel free. Like we're big fans of Gary V over here at J29, and he's always cussing. So like, be you. That's what we believe in over here.
But he's always like, I mean, yeah, I'm always like flying on F-bomb, stuff like that. So, but it's like I'm real who I am, and I don't pull punches. So it's like if I don't like something, I'm not gonna like pretend to like it. I'm not gonna like kiss ass. I'm not gonna tell people. I'm not gonna follow people online if to hate follow them. I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, well, that person. If they drive me nuts, whatever, I'm just gonna unfollow them. So it's like I kind of walked in my own path. You can't put me in a box whatsoever. I mean, I've been told that numerous times where it's like I literally have no box. Like it just I ride a motorcycle, but I have a Harley and it looks like a street bike. Stuff like that. I don't like biker club because I don't like rules and regulations, stuff like that. So I think when I think like, I think Venom definitely fits me to a T. Captain America is too hokey. Iron Man is too cliche. Actually, Iron Man kind of a dork anyway. Thor, okay. I'm part Viking. I'm part Scandinavian. I got a Thor tattoo, but I'm not calling myself Thor. That's so goddamn cliche. And I'm like, no. Everybody wants to be a Viking. You're a fucking American. We're not born in Iceland in the year 1000. It's like, no, we're not Vikings. You shop for meat at supermarkets. But like if you look at like my personality, it's good and it's dark. I got both sides. I can write about the dark side of life and I can be positive. So that's how I look at it. I think Venom is doing with T.
I think it's a great
Plus I wear
answer,
a lot of black. Plus I wear a lot of black, so it works.
That'll help, yeah, for sure. I love I love the comment about the Viking stuff, man, because I'm a Marine myself, long removed, but the Till Valhalla stuff, I'm like, come on, guys, like we're not riding ships and raiding countries. Let's knock that stuff off. I
No.
appreciate the sentiment, but yeah, it's the Viking thing is a little overplayed, I think, for sure. So Jay, man, you have been awesome. I love the gold nuggets that you brought to the show today. How can people keep up with you? How can they get in touch with you? How can they get involved? How can they reach out if they want to hire you?
Well, easy thing to do. Everything I have available on my website at jayashman.com. All my Instagram stuff's up there, Facebook stuff, everything. I mean, you just go to the website, meander around, read my blogs. I have a Medium page as well. It's medium.com at an abnormal man. That's kind of where I have my more darker stuff, like, writing about death, writing about mental health. So it depends. I keep my fitness stuff on one page and my reality stuff on the other page. But nevertheless, go to jashman.com. You can just dig around, look at the blogs, and have some fun. Follow my Instagram page. And, I have a YouTube channel up. I just started again. So I'll be posting educational videos about like fitness and health, real reality stuff, not stupid stuff, hopefully. But yeah, that's easy. Pretty easy to find me.
Awesome. Yeah, jayashman.com. So go check him out. Thanks for being a guest. Thanks for everybody that's tuning in. Everybody out there, have a great day.